Hi, Gemma. Thanks for joining our School to Startup. Just to give you a quick introduction to Tracxn. So we are one of the leading private market research platforms, and we have been in the industry for about 12 years. And we closely work with the investors to support their market intelligence as well as there to help them do due diligence on companies. And we've recently started working with universities about 2 years back, understanding the rise of entrepreneurship in each university. And also we started School to Startup with the same initiative in mind, understanding that there's so much rise of entrepreneurship, especially with universities. Here we try to inspire any entrepreneurs and young minds to go for, if we can inspire even a one mind with through this interview, that is something that we would love to achieve through this. To start off with the questions, we have the first question. We would love to know about your journey. What led you to academia, and how has been your experience so far?
Thank you so much for having me, Ankita. It's my pleasure to be here today. So, I mean, first of all, I guess I'm not really in academia. I work in a university, but and I have my PhD, but I don't work directly in academia as a researcher or a professor. So I have a background in in geography. My academic background's in geography and geosciences, and my PhD was looking at counting trees from space. So using satellite remote sensing to map deforestation in sub-Saharan Africa. And through that work, I got very involved in sort of the public sector in climate change work and response, as well as the role of data for policy making. So I continued my career post my PhD into the public sector. So I was working for local authorities in Scotland, and then was fortunate enough during my time at Edinburgh Council, we were involved in something called the South East Scotland City Region Deal, which is an economic development initiative. The major strand of this initiative, a £700 million programme, is something called the Data-Driven Innovation Initiative, which is hosted at the University of Edinburgh on behalf of this City Region Deal partnership. So I've been lucky enough to be working for that programme in a number of different roles for the last 7-ish years now. So I'm now head of strategy for the Data-Driven Innovation programme. And one of the strands of that is basically it's looking at how we put data at the heart of economic growth for the city region. And there are a number of different elements and different strands to that, one of which is entrepreneurship, as well as the adoption of data-driven innovation into existing companies within the region. So it's been a broad remit, but it sort of spans all of my interests across academic research, strategic change, economic development, as well as being I'm a very values-driven career person. So obviously most of us in public sector careers have tend to have done it because we are sort of mission-driven. So that's what's attracted me to my current role.
Okay. So what are the most exciting projects or research initiatives that you're currently working on?
Yeah, so the projects that I'm specifically leading, I'm doing, I'm a project coordinator for 3 Horizon Europe Innovation Funding projects. One's called Extend, which is on pan-European deep tech startup cluster networks. Another one called Reheal, which is based on looking at improving circular economy in healthcare waste streams. And then another one called Urban Flow, which is about urban mobility challenges and looking at innovative solutions for urban mobility. So as you can see, I oversee a wide portfolio of different projects, but that's almost my side job. My day job is looking at strategic and operational planning for the Data-Driven Innovation Programme as a whole. So how we are embedding this network of 6 innovation hubs within the Edinburgh and South East Scotland region and driving forward the whole network of ambitions that we have around talent development, skill development, adoption, scale-up, entrepreneurship, the whole gamut. So I wear a lot of different hats on any given day.
That's a lot to handle, to be honest, but I'm sure you're doing it really well. The next question is, so I'm sure you are currently, I heard a lot of your projects that you mentioned are focused towards sustainability, and so what I want to understand is there any trends that you're observing in startup ecosystem that any student who's listening to this interview should pay attention to, or how academia is responding to these trends through initiatives that build an entrepreneurial mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I see there's a number of different trends. I think we're seeing very much, I don't know whether it's because it's what I pay attention to, but I think we're seeing very much this move towards mission-driven AI powered startups. So there's obviously the AI is the new technology, right at the beginning, like
Yes.
it's almost at the peak of its hype cycle, I guess.
Yes.
But where we're looking at focusing on mission-driven startups, particularly looking at tackling real-world problems like climate change, like healthcare access, like financial inclusion. So we've done a number of projects at Edinburgh. So our AI accelerator, for example, has been supporting startups. There's one called chirrup.ai, which is looking at assessing bird song through AI to assess nature biodiversity, predominantly within cities, to help with sort of biodiversity assessments. And then there's something called NOMW Health, which is they're creating a sort of wearable device that allows you to detect opioid overdoses. So there's a lot of different sort of mission-driven startups that are coming through that I think are really important. I also think I'm seeing a growing demand and shift into deep tech, and I think a lot of people who work in academia will probably be at that end, because a lot of research is obviously very early stage technology, so it tends to be a lot more of the deep tech solutions that are coming straight from the cutting edge of research. So we've got this initiative that we've now got called Venture Builder Accelerator at the university, which is hosted at the Bay Centre, one of the DDI innovation hubs, which is giving postgraduate researchers access to funding, mentoring, and the space to turn data or science-driven ideas into companies. And we've just expanded the funding out for that through TechScaler, which is a Scottish Government initiative to run at 16 of the 20 Scottish universities. So it's been, and I think, is there anything else I want to say? Oh, I think there's also in academia, I think there's also a shift happening in a lot of universities globally around the move towards more innovation inclusive career pathways. So academia used to have a very specific structure. It was publish or perish. You came in, you did your PhD, you did your postdoc, you earned your credits in the lab, you did your teaching, you did your time. But now there are more universities, Edinburgh's one of them, looking at opening up these pathways for people to still progress in their careers within the academic realm, within academia, but having more of an innovation fellow or innovation career pathway, so that entrepreneurship experience or desire is rewarded within those career journeys.
That's so good to know, and I think just kudos to Edinburgh to keep up with all the new technologies and supporting them in every possible capacity. So I think you did mention a lot of projects around AI, and it was very interesting. All the projects that you mentioned, or all the startups that you mentioned, were very interesting to know. So my next question is pretty much aligned on the similar lines. So we want to know if there is any any recent student-led project or startup that have turned into success stories, or also how do you think that new generation entrepreneurship courses are contributing to shaping such outcomes?
Absolutely. So there are a couple of really cool startups that have come through, like our student engagement, the various student entrepreneurship programs that we have at the university. One is called Carinotech, which was a student idea that uses 3D printed technology, 3D printed tumors to detect cancers and look at targeting cancer treatments more safely and effectively. And it was a student project team that has been scaling globally now, and they're still based in the city region. And there's another one called SinSense. Sorry, I've got notes off to one side, so if I'm looking to one
No,
side,
that's
lovely podcast
that's
audience,
okay.
because I want to make sure I don't get anybody's name wrong. So there's another is SinSense, which is it's a sweat monitoring wearable that was developed by a PhD student in synthetic biology that's looking at a number of different applications in terms of sort of healthcare monitoring. Primarily, they're targeting at the moment sort of diabetes monitoring because apparently we sweat out sugar in our skin. So you can sort of do
Oh,
sort
that's
of
interesting.
glucose monitoring detection without the need for needles is essentially their aim,
Oh, so
hopefully.
it's like a non-invasive sort of
Yeah,
a, okay. Oh, that's
absolutely.
interesting.
And so far to date, we've had, I mean, when we start to look at the scale of the DDI program, we've invested in over 600 companies, so startups and scale-ups, and ventures linked to the DDI initiatives. And so far, they've leveraged over £220 million in external investment, which is obviously a huge boost to our local economy. So it's great to see. But the successes that we've had in entrepreneurship, they're predicated on much more like rigorous development of skills within the university ecosystem, but that extends out to the further education colleges. We call them in the UK often sixth form colleges, so 16, 17, 18-year-olds before you go to university. And that we've had sort of tens of thousands of students go through data skills, data literacy programs, AI skills, AI literacy programs that start to open the doors for conversations about these sort of more high skill, high tech startup ideas. And then when they get to the university, they're already thinking in this sort of technology oriented space. And then we can start to attract them into the student entrepreneurship programs as well to offer support from very early stages within their academic journey. So a lot of traditional startup support within university or entrepreneurship support within universities has often targeted master's or PhD level, like postgraduate, with a sort of more limited provision in terms of undergraduates being very much geared towards starting their own business fresh from university. But now that support is definitely changing through a lot of more undergraduate geared support services.
Okay, that's a lot of, I think from health tech, I think we heard some success stories from health tech to a lot of AI based startups. And also I saw that the trend within the courses were also towards, AI, and these courses are also navigating through the similar startups that you've been working with. And of course, there have been success stories there. So now my next question is, how do you see the role of academia in evolving in startup and innovation space in the next few years?
I think where academia has really been thriving, in my experience, has been in providing this kind of safe and trusted space for experimentation. So the idea that we've got a kind of safe sandbox where students can take risks with ideas, test ideas, learn from failure without the financial pressures that they might have later on in their lives or careers. And one of the things that we've really learned is that founders don't just need tech skills. We need to put that whole wrap around. They need communication, they need design thinking, and a strong understanding of how to test a market, run a business, understand user needs. And when we're looking at deep tech or technology-enabled startups, are they equipped to wrestle with the ethical questions around what they're doing? So just because we can do something, does it mean that we should do something? And what are potentially the unintended harms? So there's a lot of focus on the ethics of data and AI within student education, which I think is helping see, like, it's layering on this approach to how academia is supporting the trajectory of these students. So I think there's a number of different things that we've done in terms of providing this sort of pipeline of support all the way through a student's journey. And I think it's trying to make sure students also have exposure throughout their learning journey to challenge-led or real-world challenge problems. So rather than waiting until students get to their final thesis, their final dissertation in their final year, to expose them to working on a research project or a real-world project, trying to embed that at every stage of the curriculum. There's something that we run called Students as Change Agents, which was a DDI initiative that was rolled out across undergraduate courses across the university, where students were brought together in teams of 4 or 5 students from different disciplines, intentionally multidisciplinary teams, so that they could learn and draw from each other, but they were taught data science skills, they were taught design thinking skills while responding to a challenge from a real world partner. And it's been as varied as reducing loneliness among LGBTQ youth, figuring out how to get libraries into rural parts of Scotland, how to navigate the university's on-campus green transition, and working on solutions to communicate children's rights more effectively with a UN agency. And so having seen organizations take this on, like there might be multiple groups working on particular projects, but occasionally, like, you get there's normally one group a year where the partner goes, that one, we want to take that forward. And so it's giving students this exposure very early on of what it's like to work with real world constraints, where there is a budget, there is a deadline. Yeah.
It's a wide range of things to actually pick from.
Yeah, it's true. And I think for me, because I've spent a career becoming a generalist, like, I think that's what geography gives you, because it's such a broad subject. So I think that's where I sort of look for commonality with people. It's that you can learn a skill set for solving problems and apply it to anything. And it's being able to have that flexibility, that adaptability in your thinking, that we're trying to train people how to think in that way so that they can take it to wherever their interests, their skills, their passions are.
That's interesting. And, I'm sure there's a lot of learnings from, every question that you've answered so far. But I'm going to pinpoint one question and just ask you, is there any kind of advice that you would give to anyone who's just starting off their academic journey or a budding entrepreneur? And what kind of advice would you give them to be prepared for this rapidly evolving landscape?
Oh, I think the best thing that they can do is stay curious. Like, stay curious, stay informed where you can, stay grounded, and don't just jump on the next shiny thing because it feels like the next shiny thing. I wrestle with AI a lot myself as a concept. Generative AI, obviously it's everywhere now. It's being embedded into almost every, like, it's in the Apple ecosystem, it's in the Microsoft ecosystem, it's in almost everything we use every day. And trying to maintain an awareness of the conscious choice around when you're choosing to use a technology, why you're choosing to use a technology, rather than just going, this is going to make me money. Overall, great, love that. If that's your big desire to be in the world, is to be incredibly wealthy, fantastic. But I think there's more that we can start to offer to humanity than just creation of money. So how do you show up in the world as your whole authentic self and do something that is aligned to your mission, your passion, because it will take you further. Like, people will respond more to when you're trying to solve a problem, when you're trying to advocate for a cause or an idea. And it's not to say that those things can't make money, because there's one example from my field is there's a company that has spun out from the university called Space Intelligence, which is a remote sensing geospatial data-based company. There's been a number of successful geospatial spin-outs from Edinburgh. Not to brag, I wasn't involved in any of them, but a lot of my friends were. But we're looking at sort of climate AI from satellite data, and trying to look at how we can make some money, have some fun, do some good. If you can hit those 3 things, you've got a successful career.
Oh, that's a big advice, and I think it's a very difficult. But I'm sure there are lots of students who would get inspired by these three things that you mentioned, and I hope there are more entrepreneurs who are focusing on everything that you said, not just chasing the money, but just try to give back to the society as well at the same time. Um, and my last question is if there are any research projects that you're currently working on, or if there are any upcoming projects that you would like to mention, and if anyone from our audience would like to learn more about your work, so where can they read about it?
Sure. So the work that I'm doing is all through the Data-Driven Innovation Programme at the moment. We've got a website, ddi.ac.uk, where you can find out all about what we're up to. We're active on LinkedIn. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I occasionally post intermittent articles, which are my ramblings on a variety of topics related to data and AI. We've recently published a report on that I contributed to with the Institute of Economic Development on how universities can support regional economic development. If anybody's interested in that field, I'd recommend you check it out. But if you're, I totally understand if it's a more niche topic. There's also the latest DDI annual report available on our website, as well as the City Region Deal annual report for those of you that really can't get enough economic development in their lives. But yeah, no, that's all that I would like to shout out for now, I think.
Thanks, Gemma. I'm sure a lot of people who would look at these videos would love to go and read more about your work, especially around AI. Thanks for coming for this interview. And I'm sure a lot of students or a lot of entrepreneurs are inspired by everything that you've had to give back. And I'm sure that your expertise from academia has been a great addition to these series. So thanks, Gemma, thanks for having us here. Thanks for coming here and giving us your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.